is excused, and in person, we have Trustee Rosenberg, Trustee Sullivan, and myself. So we're here, and we're ready to address the issues that were outlined in the notice, and that is to address the Sustainable Westchester Community Choice Aggregation Program. And with us, we have the expert in the field, Dawn Branson, who's the chair or the head of Sustainable Westchester. So welcome. And if you can give us a 5-minute overview of what we're looking at, our choices are, the ramifications of it, that would be great.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I have to say, having been at the receiving end of presentations like this for 28 years, I do not take your time for granted. I realize this is a special meeting. I'm very grateful for your accommodation and for your consideration of re-entering the program. And I will do my best to follow your guidance and race through the presentation, really just hitting the essential points which are relevant to your choice this evening. So I will skip through a discussion of climate change as a challenge. I know that you are aware of that already. Skipping through a reintroduction to Sustainable Westchester as an organization. I do think you're already familiar with the basic mechanics of the program. Aggregation of power from multiple municipalities. We structure an open bid. We then obtain renewable energy certificates on the open market. We notify the public of their choices, and then anyone can opt out of the program either before the commencement of the contract or any time thereafter. The impacts are related to providing clean energy, expanding consumer choice, and capping electricity costs. Again, I'm not going to give you the statistics again, but if you want me to get into any of this in greater depth, I'm glad to do that. I do want to remind everyone with respect to the range of choices that are presented that one of the fundamental goals of community choice aggregation is to expand the menu of options for residents and small businesses. So this model provides people with more energy suppliers than they would otherwise have. And in all instances, there is always a default supply that you have to opt out of if you don't want it. In a traditional model, it's the utility. In this model, it's Westchester Power. Again, racing through things, I think you're already familiar with NYSERDA's CEC program. Dobbs Ferry's done quite well with it, by the way, so congratulations on the range of environmental actions that you've undertaken. And you know that opting out is easy and simple, so I don't have to dwell on that. So let's really get into the options with respect to the next contract, which I think is at the heart of your decision today.
Can I just interrupt for a second? Can you just, I asked you before the meeting, but just for anybody who happens to be tuning in TV land, if you have already opted out of the program, you remain opting out. We're not opting you back in, and then you have to figure it out again.
That is absolutely right. Anyone who's opted out at any time previously in an earlier contract, that decision is respected in the new contract, and you are not automatically re-enrolled. However, you are able to re-enroll if you wish to do so. You can affirmatively decide to rejoin the program, and that's one of its hallmarks. In contrast to many private ESCOs, you can come and go as often as you like. There's never a fee or a penalty, so it's a very consumer-friendly model.
Great, thank you.
Through this, unless you want me to. So here's the essence of the choice before you. The default supply that was offered in the current contract composed 100% of Tier 2 RECs. That's legacy RECs associated with hydropower. We're not sure we're able to offer it again this year because of supply constraints related to Tier 2. So instead, the default options for Dobbs Ferry and other communities are a kind of light green, which we're just calling it to establish a typology, that is 50% renewable, composed of Tier 2 RECs, or a dark green, which is 100% renewable, composed of a blend of Tier 1 and Tier 2 RECs. It is possible that the medium green that we've offered this year will be available. That will come into clearer focus over the next few weeks, but we're not counting on it, and it probably will not be. Notably, that dark green, which includes Tier 1 RECs, that's mainly wind and solar, it would be the most environmentally impactful default supply in the history of the program, and so to the extent that that is a priority for Dobbs or other communities, this can be an attractive way to deliver it. Your options are threefold. First, you could decide you don't want to continue with the program. Exit the program entirely. In that instance, anyone who's currently enrolled in Westchester Power in Dobbs Ferry would go back to Con Edison as their default supplier, so back to primarily fossil fuel-based supply with a variable monthly rate. And there will be no further options for those consumers under this program. You can't opt into it if the municipality has left the program. Option 2 is to decide that you want to continue with Westchester Power, and you want to establish that light green 50% renewable as your default supply. In that instance, individual consumers could opt up to 100% or opt out of the program entirely and go back to the utility. Your third choice is to say we want to stick with the program and we want to establish 100% renewable as our default supply. In that instance, consumers could opt down to 50%. Maybe they still want to do something for the environment, but they want to save a little bit of money. Or, again, and as always, they can opt out of the program entirely and go back to the utility. There's one final wrinkle with respect to that third option. We'll know availability and pricing of those renewable energy certificates in the next couple of weeks or so. And you will have the option to decide whether you actually want the 50% or 100% after that pricing is fully known. So, you can decide based on all the facts in front of you. If you choose the first, the MOU-A 50, that means you're committed to the 50% renewable, no further decisions required. If you choose MOU-B 100, you're preserving that optionality for yourself. You're indicating it's your desire to go to 100%, but you're going to reserve the final decision when the price is known. You don't have to do that as a legislative action. We don't want to have to bring you back unless it's absolutely necessary to do so. So you'd be empowering the manager or the mayor to make a decision on your behalf. As a practical matter, we would expect it would be a consultative process in which you'd all agree on how you want to proceed. So I hope that provides some measure of clarity on the choices for Dobbs Ferry. And I hope I've come in under the time objective.
I just have one question. So even if we decide to do the 50%, an individual can on their own decide to up to 100%.
Correct.
And if we do 100%, an individual could opt down to the 50%?
Correct.
Okay.
What is the, just as a ballpark, I know you haven't put out the bid yet, but historically, like what is the price, how much does the price tick up for the dark green versus the light green that we've had till now?
So again, with the important caveat that you yourself stated, and I appreciate that, we don't know for sure until the bids come in. Our guesstimate is that the Tier 2 RECs will come in at maybe a little north of $2 per kilowatt hour. 2 cents, I should say, per kilowatt hour.
Thanks. $2 seems right.
I think the
$2, I'm going back to Con Ed.
Mayor was kind enough to refer to me as the expert, but I'm the new guy here. And we think that the Tier 1 RECs will come in at around 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So in that instance, the total delta would be somewhere, if you figure 50% Tier 2 would be at about, a cent. And a blend of Tier 1, Tier 2 going up to 100% would be around 250. So probably it'll be a gap of about 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour, ballpark.
Gotcha. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what's the Con Ed baseline-ish?
And again, we don't know that for sure, but our indicatives are that it'll probably be around 11 cents per kilowatt hour for the base supply. And how that will compare to Con Ed over the next 12 to 18 months is inherently unknowable because the Con Ed rate is variable. There are reasons to expect that there's going to be upward pressure on utility rates next year, and that has to do with the overall New York State energy market. Some of the heavily polluting peaker plants will be coming offline. That's good, but it'll take a little longer for new renewable energy to come online. And so that gap, again, is likely to have an upward pressure on utility prices. That's reason to believe that a fixed rate established in 2024 will hold up comparatively well in 2025, but that's not a guarantee.
So when you were saying that it was 1 cent, 2 cents, or 3 cents, that's over and above the Con Ed 11 cents?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
In addition to.
It's in addition to, exactly. That's the premium for the renewable energy. I should point out that according to all the indicatives that we have today, the total amount will be considerably less than in the current contract. The exact delta will depend on what default supply you choose, but sort of apples to apples, we expect it'll be 10 to 20% less than what we've had in the current contract.
And why is that?
What
What happened with the rate? Because they get calls, a lot of calls, and there's a lot of call on social media. So maybe you could just summarize what happened.
Absolutely. And that is customarily part of the presentation, and I'm glad that you asked me about it. In 2022, the contract was set just as the war was breaking out in Ukraine. So energy prices were escalating, and all the mainstream forecasts projected that energy prices would remain high. Contrary to those forecasts, energy prices subsequently declined. And so we were stuck with this fixed rate that, in retrospect, was set at what turned out to be a uniquely bad moment and was therefore persistently higher than the utility rate. If you look at the longer history of this program, dating back to 2016, then the current contract really stands as an outlier. We've typically been much more in line with the utility rate, some years a little bit higher, some years a little bit lower, but nothing like the delta that we experienced in the current contract. So we're obviously not happy about that circumstance. We know that you aren't either, and we respect that people have concerns and complaints. But I think a holistic view, a contextual view of how the program has worked is helpful in addressing those concerns. And the last point I'd make on that score is that if on an apples-to-apples basis you look at our renewable power and compare it to the renewable energy that is available from private ESCOs, then even in this unsatisfying current contract, we've consistently come in at the low end of what is available on the private market. And that's where the power of aggregated purchasing really shines through. We have much more bargaining power than an individual consumer would. So anyone who's wanted renewable energy, even in this contract, has gotten quite a good deal out of Westchester Power.
Jessica, do you have anything you want to add?
No, just for clarification, so we're basically talking about like something like a 10 to 20% increase for either tier 1 or tier 2 green over the baseline for this. No, Larry's shaking his head. You said 11.
Yes, I think that's
11
correct.
cents
I
for
think that's correct.
baseline, and then add another cent or 2 cents, just so we understand like the order of magnitude here.
I thought it
3
was
cents.
2 or 3 cents, and the difference between the two tiers is 1 cent, if I heard Noam correctly.
Yes, although the 100% product it's unlikely that it would be 100% tier 1. It would be a blend of tier 1 and tier 2. So again, we're using round numbers here, but if you assume tier 2 is 2 cents, tier 1 is 3 cents, average them together, probably about two and a half in total.
So 2.5
Roughly
for the
15.
top level,
Right.
and 2 for the medium level. Is that
Well, yes, or with the medium level, I'm sorry to make this confusing. The medium level, which is the current default, we think is unlikely to be available. So the
sorry.
practical choice is likely to be between the light green, which is 50% tier 2, so assume
I think
1
you've
cent
talked
premium.
about the Con Ed utility price, the light green price is the middle one, and then
Okay.
the 100% is the 2.5.
So the baseline, our best guess, is about 11 cents. The light green, our best guess, is around 12 cents. The dark green, our best guess, is around 13.5 cents. But I do want to again emphasize what the Con Ed rate will be 6 months from now is something no one can know with certainty. And we know that historically there's been, the gap in the utilities we serve has been 4 cents up to 22 cents. So an enormous potential range. But the good news is, anyone who is price sensitive and is concerned about a price spike, having a fixed rate shields against that kind of price spike. And having an expanded menu of choices always lets people optimize their costs. They can always choose the supplier that is less expensive if that is their priority.
Just so I'm clear.
And Noam,
Right,
if
go ahead.
I could just ask a question, they could decide to change suppliers or plans during the year, or are they opting in or out for the whole year?
At any time. So, and I realize it's a little confusing because prior to the inception of a contract, we have something called an opt-out period. And that sometimes implies to people that that's the only opt-out period. In fact, that's a reference to people who want to excuse themselves from the program before the contract even commences. But any time thereafter, someone can opt out for any reason. And you can do so by email, you can do so by a phone call, you can do so by filling out a card. We make the process very, very easy, and we walk people through it on a regular basis at Sustainable Westchester.
And so just so I'm clear, this rates that people will be locked in the village also, they'll be locked into for the term of the contract, right?
Correct.
Unless they opt out at some point during the contract.
Right, so we were locked into that fixed rate, whereas if you went to a different ESCO, or maybe even Con Ed, that could adjust. For some people, it could go up and down, up and down. Like today, it could be a great rate, and then 3 months from now, it could be jacked up, and then they would have to opt out of that.
Correct.
Right? So this is a locked-in rate where we know, this is where it's a fixed rate where we know what's gonna be for the length of the term of the contract.
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor, I just had a quick question. Can a person opt out? Is there a limit to how many times they can opt in or out? They can,
People can come and go as often as they like.
Like day trading.
yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There is a certain, it's not instantaneous. It may be the next billing cycle before your choice. So day trading, you can't quite arbitrage things here, but
Well, you know, it's
That's
just,
like,
And tier two is 100% renewable, like the, what you were saying, the winds and the. right?
well, tier one is primarily wind and solar. So that is has the deepest environmental impact. Tier two is associated primarily with hydro, and it's sort of the maintenance of existing renewable power generators, which is also important to the grid. But tier one, you can think of as, being more environmentally impactful.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, just for the record, and this only affects the supply portion of folks' bills and not the delivery portion of the bills, right? The delivery continues to be done by Con Ed, and we have no control over that. Is that correct?
That is exactly right. Con Ed owns the infrastructure. They're always responsible for delivery under all circumstances. And as you all probably know, delivery is usually the larger share of one's utility bill. So we're only talking about supply, which is a comparatively smaller share of the bill.
Any other questions? Okay,
Can
so-
we, I'm sorry, I assume that we're gonna get some kind of formal notice when this is actually priced, and we as a board would be able to publicize the numbers versus, say, current Con Ed rates, which I understand can move around, just so people would have final numbers to be able to make a decision if they chose to.
Absolutely, yes. We will send out a mailing to everyone who participates in the program with that kind of information. And what we've done in many communities is partner with the municipal leadership to enhance that foundational communication strategy. So whatever we can do to work together to make sure that your residents have a full and complete and timely understanding of their energy options, we're very happy to partner with you.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? Okay, so let's just discuss it, and I'm happy to go first, and I would say that I would like to do the one that would allow us the option to amend to 100%, if that, I think that's the best way to go for the village. It gives us the flexibility to do so. So that would be my vote.
Does the village have the opportunity to go from light green to dark green, or is that on an individual basis? If we choose light green today, can we as a village go up, I think was
Yeah.
to 100%?
So if you choose the second MOU, MOUB 100, then you will have the option of establishing either the light green or the dark green default after the pricing is set. But once the contract commences, you can no longer change the default. That would be an individual choice to move from whatever you establish as the default.
So we would have to choose MOUB in order to have that decision. If we chose MOUA, we don't have that decision to make.
Correct.
Okay,
So I agree, we should do MOUD.
same.
Larry,
MOUB.
Jessica,
B. B.
B, okay. Mike?
B.
Okay, so you have it.
Thank you again for your excellent questions and for your presence tonight, whether virtually or in person. We're very pleased to have the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
down and taking the time to do this. I apologize for, I know we could have responded a lot quicker for you,
It's
but.
all good, all good. Thank you.
So is there a motion to authorize the execution of an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with Sustainable Westchester for the, and I want to get this right, Community Choice Aggregation Program with a 50% renewable default energy supply and the option to amend to 100% renewable in the future? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Rosenberg, all in favor. That passes, 6-0 with one absent.
One absent.
So you have to write that down, because
Yep.
Liz was.
Yes. I'm sorry, there's a motion?
Who made the
it
motion?
was-
Trustee Sullivan.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay,
Second, Trustee Rosenberg.
got it. Thank you.
And all in favor.
All in favor.
Right, 601 absent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Make it stay, but it's probably not worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noam.
There's a concert going on in Waterfront Park. You should check it out.
And trivia, so
That's going to delay my cocktail.
Oh, no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have two other issues that we'd just like to add to the meeting tonight. One would be concerning the parking lot at Cedar Street parking lot, 99 Cedar Street for Friday, July 12th. So I have to add that item to the agenda before we could even discuss it. So is there a motion to address the possible free suspension of parking at 99 Cedar Street on July 12th, 2024? Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor. So
Okay.
Trustee Rosenberg, Trustee Sullivan, all in favor. So the meeting has now been added as action item number 2. And I don't know if, did you send that email to everybody or just?
Yeah, I know, I sent it to everybody. Basically, Robin sent an email earlier letting people know that there is, Con Ed is going to be repaving on Palisade Street from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Friday. And I thought it would be good of us to allow people to park without cost during that time at 99 Cedar, since it's right there. So that's essentially the one-sentence version of it.
During what period?
So
Can I make a
Friday.
suggestion? with
During,
respect to the-
during normal hours on Friday.
Can I make a suggestion with respect to the period? Why don't we say, over the next 2 weeks during said construction, if it's delayed, something like that. Just because if it pours rain on Friday and they do it, on Monday, we're going to have a problem where people won't. I think it's a very good idea to offer that.
How do we do that?
It should also be effective today because they've already got cones out and people can't park on Palisade as of now. So
Oh, well, there you go.
we should make it immediately effective.
Until the end of the paving work,
Perfect. Yeah.
The end of the paving work specific to
Palisade Street.
Palisade Street. I just
Yes.
want to make sure I'm clear. So
Yes.
it would be effective,
Let's do, I don't know, what, 7, what time does parking end anyway?
8.
8. So why don't we say as of 12:01 on July 11th? For as long as
The duration of paving operations.
regarding
On.
Palisades.
okay.
Okay, as outlined, is there a motion to suspend the parking as outlined regarding the parking on Palisade Street?
So that would be from 12:00
I would say it's July.
retroactive to
No, just do it.
12:01 tomorrow morning,
12:01
Okay.
tomorrow.
Thursday morning, the
24th.
July 11th.
AM Thursday.
Do you
Okay.
you can't do it now? It's not 8 o'clock
How
yet.
are we gonna do it
How are you going to do it now? You
practically?
people
now?
park.
Yeah.
Well,
And this is
it-
just the
maybe someone's
fee.
launching.
I'll tell you why, because let's say they gave a ticket now, then they're gonna say, well, at 6:36, the Board of Trustees suspended it.
Yeah.
So I would
Police
just
have
say
no
it's
notice.
easier if we could just say 12:01 on July 11th.
And you need an absolutely defined period. And again, this is just in terms of the collection. It's not in terms of the other enforcement related to that parking lot.
Well, it's related to time limits as well.
That's my question, because in the past, we've suspended only the portion having to do with the,
No, I mean, if.
Well,
we're talking
whatever
about-
exists on Palisade should exist at the lot. So whatever they would be doing if they were parking on the street, which is no limit, right, on Palisade Street,
Yes.
that should be available at the lot. We should not create additional hardship from this. It's been difficult enough.
There's no limit on Palisades?
No, it's free parking.
Okay,
There's one zone, but most of it is not.
okay.
So I'm confused. So it would be the enforcement equivalent to the parking on Palisade is now permitted at 12:01 a.m.
And well, and just to make it more complicated,
No, I'm trying to make it less
well,
complicated.
no, no,
Why
no,
don't we
but-
just
but
say
if you
no
just say it that
enforcement
way,
between now
there's
and when
a
it
zone
gets
that's
done?
free and there's a zone that's actually metered. It's the free zone we want. We want to suspend the collection of parking fees and the limitations on the number of hours that you can park at that lot for the period that we've discussed.
Okay, so we're suspending enforcement at 12:01. Okay.
Basically,
zone
ticket
is-
anyone in that lot until the paving on Palisade is done.
Yes.
It's always not particular to itself, then can't just say zones 3221.
Are they paving Palisade down?
Just two blocks, from Cedar to Riverside Place.
Right, that's the entirety of Palisade Street.
Is that
So,
just two
yeah.
blocks?
So that includes the 12-hour zone in front of the Embassy Center, for example. So, so yes, it's for, so that's why, like, there's one that's a metered zone, one block is a metered zone, one block isn't a metered zone. That's why it's just simpler to say, it'd be simpler to say, we're gonna suspend all rules related to parking at the Cedar Street lot from 12:01 tomorrow morning until the end of the repaving project.
From Cedar to Riverside, on Palisades.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the,
Yes.
that's the limit.
Which is all of,
I know, but I just want to be specific
Yeah.
in the resolution,
Right,
because
right.
that's what's been announced in the,
Okay.
and then if we can send out an email, I know it's late, but if it's possible to send out an email tonight with what the announcement of whatever gets done, that would be great, so people can start doing it tomorrow. And maybe we can post it on the village Facebook as well.
At 7 a.m., yeah.
and obviously we'll need to notify the parking enforcement folks.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so the resolution is to suspend enforcement of the parking regulations from 12:01 a.m. until the completion of the project on Palisade Street from Cedar to Riverside.
Okay,
Specific to,
Yeah,
the-
suspend right, this is for
specific to
Cedar.
the Cedar Street lot.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
okay. Did anyone make that motion yet?
No.
No.
Okay. Trustee Rosenberg, second trustee Galen, all in favor? Passes unanimously.
So that was Rosenberg, Galen, and 6-0.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we want to add another action item, and this is pertaining to, and Jessica, you could help me on this one, pertaining to possibly closing Cedar Street on August 3rd. Is that correct?
The proposal,
Can't hear you. You're muted.
did I do it? Okay.
Now we hear you.
The proposal is a full downtown closure from Cedar and Broadway to Main and Chestnut. So the main drag of the downtown. It's one downtown committee proposed street closure for the summer for the entire downtown area north of Chestnut. They want to do a dine out event. So the idea is that the streets would be closed down. Restaurants and any, food businesses could serve in the street. The downtown committee is going to take responsibility for trying to get other businesses that aren't food businesses to participate as well. So, we have a bunch of child-oriented businesses in the downtown, having them do activations for kids. The rec department has some budget for things like maybe a balloon animal or petting zoo, those sorts of things. So just sort of a fun community event, bring people downtown during the summer. The proposed date is Saturday, August 3rd. We figured that this was sort of our last weekend to get in before people, of course, a lot of people are traveling over the summer, but before the place really empties out toward the end of August. So it'd be sort of a collaboration between the downtown committee and the rec department. We did survey some restaurant owners in the village, and they are psyched about it. I was not sure that they would be excited about a street closure on a Saturday night, but I think because things do dip in the summer, they're excited for anything that would potentially bring some additional foot traffic into the village. So that is the proposal, and I know we got some numbers from the village administrator today on potential costs associated with it. I can pull it up here.
Has anybody surveyed the non-restaurants to find out how they feel about it?
Well, it would just be in the evening, and most non-restaurants aren't open in the evening.
It wouldn't just be the evening though, because the police, when we close the streets before, they start the closure like 2-3 hours before the start time.
Yeah, the idea was that we would start the closures around 4, which is when a lot of the service businesses that aren't restaurants close. And you know, there might be a couple that are open a little bit later than that, but hopefully, like, you know, of course, there's never like a perfect time where absolutely no one is affected. You know, the goal is that we're trying to like bring more people into the downtown, and if businesses want to stay open later and take part in the activations on the street, obviously that would be fantastic. Another component was potentially getting some music, some little kind of busking stations around the village, because we got really good feedback on the Cedar Street stages during the River Arts Day, the little kind of mini performances that were happening. Just trying to look at my note and see if
Do you
there's
want to take a
anything.
vote to add this as an action item number 3?
Right, so action item the proposed, let's make a motion to add an action item known as number 3 regarding possible resolution regarding closing the street on Cedar Street on August 3rd. Is there a motion to add it to the agenda? Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Second, Mr. Taylor, all in favor? It's added to the agenda. So did you get that? It's Mr. Rosenberg and Mr. Taylor.
Yes, 6-0 vote. Got it.
So we have costs of police overtime, public works overtime, and loss of parking revenue from village administrator, and it's about 10,000. So that is the other factor, and the third factor that we did not discuss yet is possible rain date, which would have significant impacts for the overtime. It's hard if you don't have a rain date for the restaurants if they order up to support an event that doesn't happen, because most of the food is perishable. On the other hand, you know, I think there are higher associated costs and other inconveniences associated with having overtime on a Sunday as opposed to a Saturday. So.
Okay, so Larry, what are you thinking?
The reason we are kind of trying to speed through or, you know, decide this now is because we have a lot of recruiting work to do for the downtown businesses, of course, if we're going to do this. So we need enough lead time to let them know about it. So that's why this was added to tonight's meeting. So thank you.
Okay. Larry, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. I like these kinds of events. As far as a rain date is concerned, I don't know what the cost would be. It's better to have one than not, but in this case, the restaurants would still be open if there's if it rains, and if people have planned to come into the village to have dinner, it wouldn't maybe be as much fun if the street was open and it was raining, but people would probably still would have a better than average night. I don't know. I'm on the fence. What's the difference in cost? Do we know, Rob?
Saturday to a Sunday, is that what you're saying?
It's double
Yes.
overtime. It's double time on Sundays.
Yeah.
Versus time and a half on Saturday.
What is it, 1.5 on Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 1.5 on Saturday and double on Sunday. I will say that we've never done a rain date for one of these street closures before. I mean, we've just gotten lucky. We've never had a planned rain date for them. And what
Yeah, I just know
happens
that.
if we plan this, but the recruitment doesn't go where you think it is? Does it just go by the wayside, or it's gonna happen no matter what?
I mean, I think if we don't get big restaurants signed up at a minimum, then I don't think it makes sense to do, but
Did anyone
the
check
ones,
Did anyone
was-
check with Jeff on if there's any money left in our celebration budget, or where the money would come from?
Kendra had, it
would come out of
as far as
recreation.
overtime,
I don't know what the,
Oh, it comes
numbers.
out of recreation?
I mean, it's early in the year, I'm guessing there would be money there, but I don't know the exact numbers.
Mike, what do you think?
And you lose the parking revenue between 4
Yeah,
and 8.
we have that down.
Okay,
I'm,
that's
I'm
it.
okay. These are
2,000.
well attended. People like them.
It's in here.
I'm not, we've done one every, we've done several. So I'm in favor of it. I will leave it to Trustee Galen to work out the rain date question. I'm okay with the rain date if that's an essential part of getting this to work.
Matt?
I mean, it sounds like a good event. If the restaurants are in favor of it, my one hesitation would have been, sometimes restaurants complain about Festa for the reason that it's closing, the street on a Saturday, but it is sort of a fundamentally different thing. It's not like a dine-out experience, it's a walk-around experience.
Why not Friday?
I think that I tend to think that we might close the streets a little too often. But if the restaurants, think it's a good thing, I think it'll be absolutely a fun event. These are always fun. So I'm in favor, but I don't really have a point of view on the rain date.
Nicole?
Yeah, I don't like last minute stuff because it feels like rushed. So I mean, I think these events have been great for the village in the past and they've been super successful and the residents really like it. I don't know who just said it. It wasn't me. Maybe it was Laura Lee or Rob. But was there any thought given to a Friday night? Is that like better?
There are
August 2nd instead of
concerts.
August 3rd, huh?
There's
because of the
concerts every
concerts?
Friday. So we didn't want to pull.
Right.
Yeah, this has been, I know it's coming to you all very last minute. I'm sorry about that because I think of all of the emergencies that have been happening with other priorities over the last few months. It's been hard to kind of pin this down. So ideally, we would have been bringing this to the board a couple months ago, but
Yeah, and I don't know, there's no increase to the overtime or anything because of the time, right, Rob? It's all the same, whether we planned it 2 months ago or 3 weeks in advance.
Correct.
Okay.
We have to reroute buses too, so that would just take notification.
And I'd also like to, have Rob work with the chief on the actual number of police officers at the street closures, because I think that in the past, we've had an over excessive amount of officers in relation to the type of event and what we expect the risks to be. So if you could work on that, Rob.
And
I'll
if
speak to the
there's
chief.
not I'm sorry, if there's not if recruitment doesn't go as well as planned, we do have a meeting between now and then that maybe there will be an indication and we can decide to pull the plug.
That was my concern also, so I guess we could pull the plug. I do think we are closing the streets, and I think too often at times at the cost of, and other businesses do complain that they're not restaurants and they're affected by it, the real estate company.
Sorry, what were the
hair
other
salon, and
closures?
so.
So
We
we
closed
did
it
the
for Fairy Festa, we closed it for
Derby.
Halloween, we closed it for the Soapbox Derby. I don't know, that's just off the top of
Just
my
a
head.
couple of weeks ago, we closed it, right?
Yeah.
So-
For the Derby?
Yeah,
Oh, I guess the
Yeah.
last thing you did was streets weren't closed, but you had the music on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
They were not
River
closed
Arts,
for
the
that.
busking
This
was
is the
on the
only
sidewalk.
closure
Yeah.
that the downtown committee is proposing for this year.
I assume, by the way, that the chamber is in favor of this. Has it been
Yeah,
discussed?
we'll coordinate with them and they'll help us get the word out and everything. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think Matt, your question about restaurants, the challenge with Festa for restaurants, I think, is that Saturday is their busiest day and October is a great time of year. So you're it's not that additive, but there are a lot of, of course, then customers have a hard time getting into town because of Festa. And then last year, what happened with the incredible rainstorm we had, and the reason we sort of said never again without a rain date is for Festa, they order up because of the anticipated attendance, and then they're stuck on a Sunday with tons of food that they won't sell and they have to throw out. So,
Got it.
because it's
So
perishable.
Yeah,
it's
I think-
categorically different, I get
but
it.
I think the Festa ordering up is gonna be extremely different than the ordering up for the dine out.
Right.
because
I'm
of
just
the number of
explaining
people.
why this,
Yeah.
I think from the folks who got back to me, the response was, oh, absolutely, this sounds great, which is a very different response than we've had from, do you
Yeah.
love having Berry Festa on a Saturday as a restaurant? It's a different very different situation, exactly.
Okay, well, because we have the ability to look at it again on July 23rd or 24th, I think that's, makes me more comfortable on this, so let's take a vote on it. So all in favor of, I guess all we're doing now is designating August 3rd as a date we're going to have a street closure.
I need the, from where to where and from what time to what time.
She said from Cedar and Broadway to Main and Chestnut. And the street closure would start at 4 and go till, I don't know what time they need it to end, Jessica.
Yeah, I think the goal was,
Probably 11, I would guess.
yeah, I think,
We,
I
we,
don't know that it has to
I'm
go
just-
that late, no.
do you need it
no.
on the record, Laura Lee? Because we did this 2 years ago or last year we did one.
I just need to draft a resolution.
No, I know, I was gonna
for
say,
Liz.
why don't we just use this template from the last one we did? We did a dine out, remember?
You did a dine around?
We did this exact event almost last summer, I think, or 2 summers ago. Where we closed the streets for a dine out in Dobbs. It might have been longer, it might have been COVID, sorry.
We can,
But we did it twice. We did it in
it, yeah.
2020, we did it in 2021, I think, so
You guys
we've
would've
definitely done it
so
before.
I imagine you have the resolution in
I,
Word.
I do, I just didn't know if this, because you're trying to encourage the non-restaurant businesses, if you were going to, actually market this without calling it a dine around, to call it something else, if you had an idea of how long you wanted the street closure. I have to say, I was in Great Barrington 2 weeks ago, and a Friday and a Saturday night every month, they do this busking thing. It's called Busk Street. The streets are closed. They're musicians busking, they're jugglers busking, they're flamethrowers, they're all sorts of things, and the restaurants put their tables right out on the street, and all of the busking is in the areas around the existing cafes and restaurants.
but does the resolution have to speak to how we're going to market it?
No, but I'm just asking in terms
What?
of,
Yeah, Jessica, can you work
time.
on some chainsaw jugglers?
All right.
Please.
So we had,
Yes.
we did this, looks like June of 20.
If I can make one more suggestion, and we can adopt this next time, we don't have to do this and muddy the waters here, but I think if we're going to do that, we might also, again, want to make parking free at the Cedar Street lot after 4 PM so that any residents who are displaced have a place to go, and B, patrons we can direct patrons to free parking to enhance the desirability of coming to town.
Okay.
That sounds great. I think we discussed 6 to 10 for the event. And I'm hoping, I know historically we've closed the streets like 3 hours before an event starts. I'm hoping, Rob, when you're discussing, and I don't know if Chief Guevara is there, but, when we're discussing like the person power behind staffing it with Steve and Chief Guevara, maybe we can also talk about, is there a way we can close the streets like an hour and a half or 2 hours before rather than 3 hours before for a 4-hour event? That would be fantastic.
I'll talk to the chief, he's not here today, but I'll bring that up and discuss it. And I know there's a street cleaning which goes on right before that too, I guess, before and after.
Okay, the details can be worked out with the professionals, so let's just move on this one. So is there a motion to approve the closure of the streets as outlined previously for the August 3rd, 2024? That motion is being made by trustee Galen. It's being seconded by trustee Taylor. All in favor? That passes 6-0. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if we could perhaps consider quickly one other item that's outstanding. It's a very minor one, and I think we can do it in just a couple of minutes.
What is that, Mr. Taylor?
We were approached by a company that runs a small sightseeing boat out of Tarrytown and out of Piermont as to whether or not they would be allowed to pick up patrons at our public dock. To me, that's like, Uber picking up somebody in the parking lot at the waterfront. But in a brief conversation with Lori Lee, it came up that we probably should have them sign some simple paperwork,
License.
and, you know, to make sure they're authorized and licensed. And then just leave it at that. But I was curious if we have a moment to talk about whether the board's comfortable with it. The boat would not be stationed at the dock. It would be prearranged that somebody would be picked up there, or a group of people would be picked up there. This boat is much, much smaller than the giant one that was there several summers ago.
What are the restrictions for the dock? It's closed, it's not open 24/7 for people, so we'd have to agree with them to have set hours when they would be doing this. And that could be from, I don't know, 7 AM to 7 PM, but that would have to be part of the licensing agreement.
Yes.
Technically open for the park hours, I believe, but I have seen boats there potentially overnight and potentially other hours, so I'm not sure.
Overnight?
Very
They're
late.
docked there overnight? That's
Which
a,
I don't personally have a problem with,
That's what
but
Larry's contemplating
yeah,
there.
that's a
no,
police
I'm just
enforcement.
saying, I don't know
That's-
that whatever the enforcement is, yes.
They,
but
they probably would, the sightseeing boat would probably want to take people out, you know, and drop them right at dusk, right, after the sunset. And again, I personally don't see this as a big deal at all, so long as Lori Lee's comfortable with the paperwork. I mean, we want people to use the dock, and it'd be a nice amenity for residents, and they might, be catered out of local restaurants who would provide them a food and beverage package to enjoy while they were on the river.
So can we just do a resolution that authorizes the administrator to enter into an agreement after negotiating all of the,
Well, you want to pass a resolution first to add an action item number 4.
Right.
sure, but
And then we can authorize a license agreement.
We would have to,
subject
subject to your approval, but I think the board has to approve it as well, because
Yeah.
I have to make sure we're comfortable with the hours and the number of people and the type of boat, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I can work
This is-
with the administrator's office to make sure that and Larry will have to make an introduction to this organization, so this would just be the appropriate way for you to collect insurances, proof of Coast Guard certifications, that kind of thing, so.
Okay.
So you want to just take a motion to add action item number 4?
Okay, is there a motion to add an item to the agenda concerning the possible lease docking of a commercial?
Licensing.
Licensing agreement regarding the commercial boat taxi service. Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Galen, all in favor. That item is hereby added to the agenda.
Thank you.
And is there a motion to authorize the village administrator and the village attorney to enter into negotiations regarding a licensing agreement as outlined?
Mr. Mayor, if we added and to approve in conjunction with the mayor, I would be very comfortable delegating that authority to the two of them and to you.
Okay, then delegating the authority to the village administrator and the village attorney.
And the village mayor.
And the
In
village.
consultation with the mayor.
Okay, that's trustee Galen, second trustee Patino, all in favor, that passes unanimously.
Anything else?
Before I close the meeting, I do want to address the terrible situation that happened at Waterfront the other day. I'm referring to the drowning that occurred yesterday, 2 days ago. First and foremost, our hearts and our heartfelt sympathy goes out to the family. It was a terrible situation that happened. I also want to thank all the first responders. I was there that night, and I tell you, New York City Police Department came with a helicopter, and they had divers, and they dove for hours. I want to thank New Rochelle. They had divers there. I am not going to forget everybody, I
Westchester
know.
County.
Westchester County was there, Piermont was there,
Local communities.
Jefferson, not Jefferson, a little further up, They had 2 boats and divers there as well. So there
Greenberg.
were many people who were participating, the Dobbs Ferry Ambulance Corps, the Valhalla Ambulance Corps, Dobbs Ferry Fire Department, Dobbs Ferry Police Department, all the neighboring communities were there. So I just want to thank everyone for putting their lives at risk as well while they were diving and on the boat. So it's a tragedy that happened in our, like I said, the county, I think it's the county coroner has taken control of the body, and
This time, yes.
an investigation, an autopsy will be done, and the family will be notified as soon as the identification is finalized. Okay. On that note, is there a motion to close tonight's meeting? Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor. Meeting is hereby closed.
You got 6:50.